All right, I think we will get started. Again, welcome to everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Kayte Hager. I am an associate director in the Office of Undergraduate Admission at Boston College. And on behalf of the entire university community, certainly the admission office, just want to offer an incredibly warm congratulations to each and every one of you. We are so thrilled at the possibility of you joining our community this fall and really excited to share some information with you tonight. This is our first of a series of programs we call Experience Boston College, and it's really an opportunity for students, admitted students from across the world, to tune in to learn a little bit more about the authentic BC student experience. And our approach in these is very similar to the approach when you visit our campus. And that is, let's give you the real live thing, the real live current student experts who can really speak to their experiences and share specifically what it was like transitioning to our community. Tonight, you're in for a real treat. Our topic tonight is Spotlight on Freshmen. So all 4 students you see joining me this evening are first-year students at BC from all over the United States, and they're really excited to share a little bit about their transition to Boston College, and more importantly, answer any questions you might have as well. So before we get started, I'd love them to introduce themselves. Emily, why don't you kick us off?
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily. I'm a secondary ed and English major in the Lynch School of Education and Human Development, and I'm originally from St. Paul, Minnesota.
Go ahead, Nick.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nick Steck. I'm a finance and accounting major in the Carroll School of Management with a double major in economics in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences, and I'm from the suburbs of Chicago.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Ava.
Hi everyone, my name is Ava Stamler. I am a nursing major in the Connell School of Nursing, and I am from Long Island, New York.
And Allie, go ahead.
Hi guys, my name is Allie Harris. I am an international studies major in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences with a minor in finance in the Carroll School of Management, and I'm from Louisville, Kentucky.
Wonderful. So a really nice representation, as you heard today, in terms of geography, also in terms of academic divisions, with all 4 of our undergraduate divisions represented this evening. So like I said, we're going to talk about some of the kind of hot topic conversations that you might think of when you think of being a first-year student at Boston College. And we're also going to answer any questions you might have. So in order to submit questions, you'll see the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to pop that open, submit any questions you like throughout the presentation. We will do our very best to answer every single question that comes in, so feel free to ask away, knowing that we have some additional subjects coming up in the weeks to follow, things like living and eating at Boston College, things like learning from seniors and what their experience has been like. So we'll have lots of opportunities to really narrow in on specific subjects as the weeks go forward as well. But let's get started. So to start it off, why don't 1 or 2 of you discuss why you chose Boston College? You know, as these students are navigating the college search process, why is it that you ended up here? Nick, let's start with you.
So I'm actually, I applied regular decision. So I had about 9 schools on my list, and the 3 schools I was really considering were Boston University, Northeastern, and Boston College. So I was really all in the Boston area. So I think if you're kind of similar to me and also have other schools there, I think BC has the best of both worlds in terms of size and location. So that was a huge factor for me. I think with us being around 9,400 undergraduates, there's a good level of intimacy between the student and the professor in terms of just class size and stuff like that. And I've definitely felt that, especially in the business school. And then also location. Boston's very accessible via public transportation or Uber or anything like that. So compared to the 2 other schools I mentioned, BC was the best of both worlds. Also, just it seemed to have a really strong community, especially among alumni. So I had lots of family friends who highly recommended it to me. So that was also another reason.
That's great. Thank you so much. Emily, do you want to chime in as well?
Definitely. So like Nick said, I think there are a lot of things that on paper were really appealing to me about BC. I think the location was perfect, size was great. But I think what it really came down to was a lot about the Jesuit identity. And what really spoke to me about it was the fact that BC emphasizes becoming men and women for others, and that emphasis on shaping the world around us through our education. And we're not just here for an education, but we're here to become better people rather than just getting the physical degree. I also think just the emphasis on service was something that really drew me to BC. There's so many opportunities for service and to give back to the community. And again, just making a difference in the world is really something that was really important to me, and something that BC stood out to me in that way. And I've been really impressed already with that.
That's great. Thank you both. Let's talk a little bit about what it was like to arrive on campus. So you're a first year student. You likely, you might know a couple of students from your high school or older students from your high school that are already at BC. What was it like arriving to campus, and what type of resources were available to aid in that transition? Ava, do you want to start?
Yes, I could start. Okay, so arriving to campus, I say was definitely very exciting for me, but also very intimidating, especially the first week. I would say there was definitely a lot going on, but I would say that I was very excited. But I would say coming to campus, I think the resources was the first day we had floor like programming. We like had a dinner, which was really nice. It was like really like a great way to meet everyone on your floor and connect with everyone. And we would meet in small groups. I think it was called the Cura. We did a Cura reflections where we would meet with groups on our floor and like groups with our RA. And I think it was very nice. We would talk about like different topics. And I think it was just a very nice, like way to connect with people. And, you always had something going on. So, it was very busy, but it kept you busy and it kept you meeting new people. And it really like put you out there. So, like you weren't just cramped up in your room, and they prepared you, for like, we arrived, I think it was about like 3 or 4 days before classes start. So I think it definitely was a really like good amount of time to like get adjusted and get like used to things before you had to start classes. I know for me personally, I'm in the nursing school. So I know every school met with their advisors before classes started. I think it was on that Saturday. And for nursing, we broke off into groups, and they actually, senior nursing girls and guys, took us around and showed us where our classes are, which was definitely very helpful and very nice. And, some resources that you could use was, your RAs, your RDs, we met with them. The first night we had a presentation where, you could talk to them. And I think it was, a lot of resources. It was very intimidating at first, but, BC did a great job at really welcoming you and making you feel very comfortable before you start classes and get out there. And, you had plenty of time to find where your classes were. And I really felt comfortable once, those days started before classes.
Great. Do you want to add anything, Allie, coming from Louisville, arriving here in Boston, maybe anything that the Office of First Year Experience might have provided, or Welcome Week, anything that made you kind of eased the transition for you?
Yeah, of course. Ava covered a lot of it, but one thing I will add, especially coming from Louisville, which is a city, but it definitely doesn't have the city culture that Boston does, was we had a Experience Boston Day through the Office of First Year Involvement, I think, where they took us in groups downtown. They taught us how to use the T, which is our public transportation system here in Boston, gave us a Charlie card to get on, showed us which stops to get off for certain events, like where to get off for the shopping, where to get off if you want to go down to the public park, things like that, which I thought was very accessible, like made it very accessible, Boston by itself. And also just got you to meet more people if you joined a group where you didn't know anyone, which is what I did, and met a lot of people through that.
That's great. And Emily talked a little bit about our Jesuit Catholic mission and how that drew her to our campus. And it's certainly an incredibly important part of who we are and what we do at BC. And one of the pillars of Jesuit education to us is student formation, the idea of really supporting our students, both as academic scholars, but also as human beings as well. And part of the way that we do that is through a series of retreats that are offered to first-year students, a series of mentorship programs that are offered to first-year students and all classes at BC as well, to really allow for periods of reflection periods of meaningful conversation with peers, with professors as well. So have any of you participated in any retreats or mentorship programs as first-year students?
Yeah, I can start. I was on the 48 hours retreat last semester, which is a retreat solely for freshmen. As the name implies, it is 48 hours. So it's your weekend where you spend it on the Cape with other freshmen and upperclassmen mentors. They broke us down into small groups, and it was really just a space for us to talk about how freshman year was going so far, what challenges we were having, and kind of confide in each other, because I think it's very easy to feel as a freshman that you're the only one going through a lot of these challenges, whether that be school or roommates or time management, anything like that. And it was very nice to get to hear from other students that were going through it with you and how they handled certain challenges, and also that you weren't in it by yourself and that there were upperclassmen that went through the same things and they also got through it and that you would too. So it was really comforting and a great way just to connect with the freshman community as a whole and to reflect on how my first semester at college had been.
And building off of Allie's point, I'm actually in this group called Ascend, which is the first year women's program. So it started this second semester, which is really special too, because it was a time where we could kind of reflect back on our first semester and then continue on with second semester. And essentially I'm in a small group with 7 other first year women and 2 upperclassmen mentors. And every week we meet, we have a topic that we talk about. Sometimes it's about registering for classes, just the transition to college in general. And it's a really special time for me to be able to connect with other freshmen who I might not necessarily have gotten to know because of like different majors or things like that. There's also Freshman League, which is the program for first year men. That's their equivalent as well. Both have retreats to start off the program. And it's a really great way to get to know people and also to connect with 2 upperclassmen is really special.
That's great. And one of our attendees this evening asked, how do you sign up for retreats? Allie, how did you sign up for your 48 hours retreat?
Yeah, so they send an email out to the whole freshman class. I think I honestly did it before school even started because an upperclassman had told me about it. So you'll go into your student portal, and through that, there's links to sign up for different retreats, different events. The email will direct you. Everything's hyperlinked these days, but just follow through that. And it was a really simple process. I know for certain retreats, there are lotteries. There's a really popular retreat here called Kairos, which you have to enter into a lottery for. So that follows a similar process, but you're not necessarily guaranteed to go on it, I guess.
That's great. Thank you. So let's go back in time a little bit because one of our attendees asked, what is orientation like? So Nick, why don't you talk a little bit about your experience attending the first year orientation, and when was it? What did you do? How did it help you?
Definitely. So my orientation was orientation session 1. So just for a little background information, there are 7 orientation sessions. So session 7 is reserved for faraway students in the United States or international students. So a couple of my friends from Oregon, Texas, California, all did orientation 7. So what's nice about it is that basically it's right before school starts. So it leads up into August 24th, 5th, when we all moved in. So that in that case, you won't really have to take 2 long flights in and out of Boston, which I think is great. Like I said, I'm from Chicago, so it's only like a 2-hour flight. So I did session 1, and it was in the middle of June, I think. And basically there was around, I want to say like 360 of us, because there were about 36 groups of 10. So I was in a group of 10 with actually like another girl from my hometown, and just a few other people. So you're really with them for the majority of your time there, because you're only there for 2 or 3 days. So I would say a couple of nights we had free where we could kind of mingle outside of the Thomas More apartments where you stay on campus. Just to clarify, that's not freshman housing. I was kind of disillusioned by that.
We'll get into that.
But that's for a later date. But during the day, it was definitely super jam-packed with different activities. It's kind of similar to when you move in with your RA floor. You guys do have discussions, and oftentimes you'll pair up with other orientation groups. Like one activity we did was about personal identity. So it was kind of an analogy of an iceberg. So on the tip of the iceberg, you kind of see who you present as, your kind of identity, but beneath the surface of the water, like what's something that someone may not know about you if they're just looking at you. So those kinds of things with reflections, so that kind of goes back to our Jesuit tradition. So that's basically the rundown on orientation, but I want to give a quick shout out to last year's orientation leaders. They were all some of the most amazing people I've ever met. I had Maimuna Sar for my orientation leader, and all 36 of them are extremely involved, just wealth of information, great resources. I haven't like gone to lunch one-on-one with Maimuna, but every time I see her walking across the hall, quad, it's a huge smile on her face. Hey, Nick. So it's really nice, especially in the first couple of weeks, just to say hi to those people. And again, just great orientation leaders. They make you feel so comfortable, because it's kind of hard to share all this personal information when you're with a bunch of strangers, but you just have to remember that everyone's kind of in that situation when coming into college. So orientation experience was 10 out of 10 for sure.
Thanks, Nick. That's great. And he talked so much about what happens at orientation and left out one really important thing, which is that you also register for classes at orientation, which is great. So you have the opportunity to sit down with an advisor and really craft your schedule for your first year to make sure that you're all set and ready to go upon arrival to campus in the fall. So thank you, Nick. That was great. So let's talk about the thing that is likely on everyone's minds here, which is housing. First year housing in particular. So Ava, why don't you start us off? Where do students live in their first year and how does it work?
Okay, so there are two options for first year housing. You could either be on upper campus, which is about a 5-minute, probably like a 2-minute walk from middle campus, I would say, so upper campus, or you could live on Newton campus, which is about a 5 to 7-minute bus ride away. I would say 60% of first year students live on upper and 40% live on Newton about. It is completely random where you get put, so you can't really choose. You could pick someone to room with, or you could go random. And if you go random, you could fill out like a little survey where you put like what time you go to bed, how like clean you are, see if you have similar interests, and then they'll pair you with someone with similar interests. So I am on Newton campus and I chose my roommate and we are on Newton. And me personally, I love Newton. I know at first when I got my placement, I was a little scared, no one really at first wants, I guess, to be on a campus that is a bus ride away, but I really found to love it here. Newton campus has its own dining hall, its own gym. It has I really, really love it. There's about, what's it called? Sorry.
Are you on Newton campus right now?
Oh, I'm on Newton campus right now. I'm in there's a prayer room here. I'm not really praying, but I'm in the prayer room, and I'm in Hardy, if no one knows, but I would say that Newton campus definitely has its perk. One thing that I love about it is that it is all freshmen. So when you are in the dining hall, you're not as intimidated as like being in a McElroy dining hall where like there could, be upperclassmen, seniors, things like that. And buses run every, I would say, 10 minutes during the day. At night, I think it does go to 15 minutes, but I personally have never had to wait more than, I would say, like 5 minutes for a bus. They're very convenient, and I actually have made some of my best friends on Newton campus here. You really make connections on the bus, especially during the first week where it's very the buses are crowded. I will admit the first week was very intimidating. Everyone was running on sort of the same schedule, but once everyone kind of gets their own schedule, has their own different class times, things like that, the bus does tend to calm down. And there are definitely pros and cons to both. I know upper, it is super convenient, only being a 5-minute, walk away from your classes. But I would say on Newton, I leave half an hour before my class, and it's really no problem at all. The buses are very consistent. They're very on top of coming, especially in the mornings when classes tend to run more, they do come a lot. And, it really has been something that I didn't expect to love as much, but I really do love, and I'm very sad to leave in a month or so.
That's great. Anyone else want to chime in on their first year living experience?
I would just add, as a fellow Newton person, I think that everyone who lives on Upper loves Upper, and every person who lives on Newton loves Newton. So there's truly no wrong space to live. Everyone loves where they're living. So I would not be scared when you're here. A bus right away, that's super scary. But either way, you will have a great living situation, and you will love where you live. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Ava's point, or kind of have a little bit of difference. So she said she chose her roommate. So I did end up going random. So I'm in a random quad in Gonzaga. So I did fill out the form. So I'm assuming most of you guys are regular decision like me. So I think my thought process behind that was I was kind of late to the game because I committed pretty late, like mid-April. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to really find someone through social media, but honestly, random has been like a decent option. I wouldn't say it's been perfect, but don't be super intimidated if you do go random, because I actually got someone from my hometown who I just happen to not know. So you never know what's going to happen with random. So definitely don't feel down and out if that ends up being what you go with. So yeah.
I am also a random roommate in a quad. I'm fully convinced Nick and I are sharing like the very same experience, because I'm also on Upper. And I would say, just in terms of, for me, the biggest thing I thought about was, am I going to meet Newton kids if I'm from Upper, like outside of my classes, or is it going to be very segregated? And I'd say, just in general, I'm on Newton at least like one weekend with my friends. So I'd say you're going to meet people wherever you go, and just please like try not to worry about it as much. I know, especially as you're getting admitted and people are talking about finding roommates, that it's going to sound like the end of the world, but as you've clearly heard, it's definitely not. So
thank you all. And there's a couple of follow-up questions, as I expected, about housing here. So the first was, what are the rooming options for first years, doubles, triples, etc.? So most of the first year rooms are traditional doubles, triples, or quads, the vast majority being doubles, although we do have some rooms like both Nick and Ali are in that are for 4 people. They are big enough for 4 people. So it kind of depends on where you get slotted. Do you usually have a quad if you go random? No, this is totally coincidental that they went random and are both in a quad. I would say most people still go random, even though there's a lot of Facebook dating and TikTok, whatever you guys all do out there to find roommates. Most people still choose to fill out the roommate survey and go random, and often are paired with one other student. And then go ahead, Nick. Yeah, chime in.
So actually when you enroll to Boston College, you'll get what's called a Res Life portal. So we use Agora portal. So it's one of the services listed. It's a super user-friendly website. So when you're filling it out, you actually get to slot your preferences for what you want. So a lot of kids do doubles, and usually you are paired with what you want. I actually did select a quad first. So you do get a lot of say-so with that. There are, like, disclaimer, a very small number of singles, but it's usually, those are reserved for students who file through the disability services to get singles. But I do know one girl in my building who preferred a single. She's like, goes to bed super early. She's like really on top of it. So she really enjoys her single. So there is some say-so. Also, 4 of my friends, I'm friends with everyone in the quad, they preferred doubles, and then they got paired together. So it was 2 sets of doubles in a quad. So Emily and Ava put each other down, and then Jules and Jess put each other down, and then they're all in a quad together. So usually what you prefer, you'll get. And also, anyway, that's all I had to say. But
yeah, no, that's great. I think that's helpful. I think it helps to kind of dispel any myths or mystery surrounding the housing process. And I know all of you just went through the housing lottery for your housing next year. So one of the questions was, do sophomores, juniors, and seniors live on Upper campus only? And actually, no, they don't. Emily, do you want to talk briefly about what housing looks like for upperclassmen?
Absolutely. So actually 85% of our students live on campus, and 95% of seniors actually come back to live on campus. So that says a lot about how great housing is here. But so sophomores and juniors live on lower campus, which is, so if you've been to BC's campus, it's situated on a hill and Chestnut Hill. So upper campus is where freshmen live. Main campus is where you'll go on a tour and things. That's where like a lot of the academic buildings are. And then on lower campus is where we have dining hall, the gym, and then we have more residential halls there. So that's where sophomores and juniors live. You'll, on your acceptance letter, you should have received either 3 or 4 years of housing. If you got 3 years of housing, that's generally because junior year, if you want to study abroad, then people tend to live off campus for 1 semester and then are abroad another semester. And so again, we have really wonderful living situation. And so by now, if you're all admitted students, so you should all receive that of how many years of housing you have. But so yeah, that's the rundown.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do choose to go random, you typically find out your roommate and your housing placement in July before arriving at BC. So with some time to reach out to them, plan who's bringing what, and make sure you know each other, at least virtually, before you arrive on campus. All right, let's transition a little bit to the academic culture and transition as a first-year student. So I think this question is a great way to kick it off. In terms of academics, how big of a jump is your current course load compared to what your work was like in high school? Allie, why don't you start?
Yeah, so I would say work-wise, I'm not sure I felt as much of a difference. I think the biggest difference was, and you're going to hear this from everyone, planning your time, because I did not think that it was going to be the adjustment that it was. You have your syllabus at the beginning of each semester. Each class will give you a syllabus with all of your classes. All of your course dates written down. So when homework's due, when midterms are, when tests are, all of it. And you go into syllabus shock essentially at the very beginning, thinking, how am I supposed to accomplish all of this? And eventually you figure out that you have to schedule your time. But for me, the biggest issue was you're surrounded by your friends 24/7. So how are you going to actually make yourself sit down and do work? And for me, I'm not the kind of person that can work around other people. So I became an expert at finding the most secluded places to get my work done, whether that's in the silent library DAPS or in like a random classroom like I'm in right now. Finding the spots and the times and setting your own personal boundaries to get your work done was the biggest transition for me.
Great. Anyone want to add anything about the academic transition?
I could add. So I would say, I completely agree with what Allie said. I think definitely it is so important to, once you get your syllabus, to sort of, plan out when your tests are, when homeworks are due, so you could always stay on top of it. But one thing that was sort of a transition for me was more like I didn't realize sort of how much free time I would have on my hands. Sometimes I feel like I do have like, I wouldn't say free time, I would say more like time to study and to get work done, because I think I have like, 2-3 hour gaps sometimes between my classes. So I think, like Allie said, the big thing really is just like planning when you're going to do it, and something sort of different for me is I have most of my friends here are my major. So it is kind of a way like we motivate each other, to like set time to do these things, to sit down and do them. And then also, like have time to like relax and like do like what we enjoy too. But, I think definitely it's important to just, make your own time, and you will have like gaps between your classes to get work done, so it won't be like you have a full day of classes and then you have to do like 5 hours of homework at night. I think definitely it's important to just manage your time, and it is for me more of a workload, but it's not as intimidating as I thought it would be.
Very good. And how many classes do freshmen typically take? Any of you?
A normal semester is 15 credits here. So you're going to graduate with 120. So I'm sure you could do the math. So each class is 3 credits. So that equates to about 2.5 hours of class. So there are different kind of schedules. So popular ones for freshmen are Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 50 minutes. Or you could do 2 hour and 15 on like a Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, or sometimes there are offerings for just once a week classes, which will be 2 hours and 20 minutes. So I did that for like business law last semester. But some of the classes you'll take, a really popular one is Principles of Economics. It's actually 4 credits. So the schedule for that was Monday, Wednesday, 3 to 4:15. But the additional credit is a 50-minute discussion section. So sometimes you will have an extra credit tacked on, or there are some other 1 credit courses that you can take. So 5 classes, usually anywhere between 15 to 16 credits.
Great, thank you. So staying on this topic a little bit, there's a couple of questions related back to orientation. And if you sign up for a later orientation, how does that impact your class registration? So does anyone want to comment on that?
I was actually in session 7, so the very last session that Nick was actually alluding to earlier on. So I was worried about that as well. I was like, I think all the classes that I want are going to be full. I had absolutely no problems with registering for classes. I'm not entirely sure how that works, that there are open spaces, but there are. Somehow BC works its magic.
Right.
But really, you won't be left in the dark with advising and things. I was stressed out about that as well. I was worried because I was like, I've never had this kind of freedom in choosing my classes. But I had like 4 different advisors coming up to me who were all in the Lynch School of Education, and they all had experience with navigating this, and they were all giving me their insights and things. So you definitely won't be left in the dark, and I would not be worried about if you are in a later session, because you will be guided through that, and you should have no problems navigating getting your classes.
I can also add, although I wasn't in a later session, they do like reserve certain seats for certain sections. So even though I was in one of the beginning sections, I didn't get one of the classes I wanted. But during the first week and a half of school, we have drop add period. So you can sit through your class, decide you don't want to take it, or decide that you are trying to get into a class that you did want originally, and switch it through the same way that you're going to add your classes, that you all will figure out. So I'm not going to get into the logistics of that, but I just say, like, don't worry if you don't get a class that you really wanted to take, because it's pretty flexible and you can find your way into it if you really want to.
Very helpful. Thank you. And again, staying on this topic, someone would like to know what the sizes of classes are like for first year students. And I will just say they are going to vary greatly, but why don't some of you talk about some of your experiences with class size?
So my fall semester, I took Principles of Economics, which I talked about, which also I said was a very popular course. So this was by far the biggest class I will probably ever take during my 4 years here. So it was a 230-person lecture. And then the discussion section I mentioned was with one of the TAs. There were about 7 TAs for that class. So that 50-minute section, I was with maybe 15 to 20 other students, and we got to ask questions to the TA. So there is still some kind of better ratio moments where you can have more personalized help. And then I also took Portico, which is the requirement for all freshmen in the Carroll School of Management for the fall semester. So that was with about 20 other students. I took a first year writing seminar, which is one of the core classes. That was a 15-person class. I took philosophy of the person, which is one of the options for your philosophy requirement. And that was about 25. And then my business law was probably 30. So I think anything within the Carroll School of Management core, which is Portico, business law, anything like if you're in the Carroll School of Management and enroll, you'll get the list. Those classes tend to be no more than 35 people. So
that was great. Thank you. And I think the rest of these students probably had a similar experience with a large class, mostly smaller classes. And that's intentional at BC. The vast majority of your classes will be those that really welcome, encourage participation, challenge you, push you beyond your academic comfort zone, really all in line with that Jesuit mission of a true liberal arts experience as well. Someone asked how you find out what courses are available and where you find the descriptions. Do any of you want to just briefly mention, what the registration process is like? And is there a resource? Of course there is, where you can view all of the classes and what they are.
I can start. Before you're going to register for your classes during your orientation session, a pre-advisor actually walks you through how you're going to do it, like the day of, a couple of days before. And for us, we spent like an hour and a half just scrolling through all of the classes that were available through the like registration itself. But I will also say that probably in the middle of summer, you're going to get a course pack, which has a lot of what kind of what Nick was alluding to, with like a lot of complex problems and classes that only are open to freshmen. Those are the complex problems, the enduring questions, and then there's a class called Courage to Know or Perspectives, which are more of those cornerstone programs. So I would say look into that, because I've taken Courage to Know and I'm currently in a complex problems, and those two are my favorite classes I've taken so far, and they are only freshmen, and they're very geared towards how the freshman experience is at BC and like making sure it's a smoother transition for you. So when you get that, look into it, because it'll help you when you start looking at what classes you're going to take.
Thanks, Allie. That's great. So again, staying on academics here, a bunch of questions about double majoring, minoring. So let me first just mention, someone asked about double majoring into the Carroll School of Management. So unfortunately, if you are a student in arts and sciences, that is not possible to pick up a double major into the Carroll School of Management. However, the opposite is very possible. It is also very possible to minor in the Carroll School of Management, and many students across campus choose to do that. So I know some of you mentioned that you have majors and minors. Can you briefly talk about what that process was like, and was it easy for you to change or add an additional academic discipline?
So I am secondary education in English, and I just added a concentration in special education, and the process was so easy. You truly just had to fill out a Google form, and they had taken care of it. I know someone who changed his major like 3 times in the past two semesters. I was like, honestly, good for you. But it's, again, super easy, and I don't believe you need to formally declare your major until the end of your sophomore year, if I remember correctly. So that's super easy. Until then, though, people change their majors all the time. Actually, way more people than I thought would. They did come in undecided, and have been able to explore kind of what they want to major in. So it's definitely possible and super easy to do.
I can attest. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead,
I can attest to switching your major. I've kind of run the gambit. I've switched my major 3 times and added a minor. So very true. But I would say your classes are going to gear you towards what you're interested in. So just listen to those.
Absolutely. And someone asked here, how do most students complete the required classes / distribution? So I think this question is referring to our core curriculum. And I will say, Nick mentioned that students take 120 credits to graduate from BC. So that's approximately 40 classes over 4 years. At most, 15 of those will be your core curriculum classes. So there's still a lot of space. And the beauty of the core curriculum, and what I imagine has helped guide Allie, is that it often inspires students to pursue a major that they're really passionate about, to change their mind, to pick up a minor. That's what liberal arts education, what a Jesuit education is all about, right? So really no issue in tackling the core. Nick, did you want to add something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm also I haven't even looked at the Q&A, but I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of questions about AP credits as well. So I was a big fan of AP courses in high school. So there is actually a sheet online. You can literally search up Boston College, AP credits, whatever. I'm sure you want to do this before you take your AP test this year. So there are some differences between what BC accepts and what it doesn't. So I was lucky to come in with about 27 credits. So there's something called the degree audit, which is on the Agora portal, which I mentioned earlier. You'll find it really easily. This is very far ahead in the future, but if you are wondering about core classes you can take to fulfill your requirements freshman year, because I know a lot of my friends are trying to rip through the core right now, you can look on like your degree audit and see specifically which AP credits apply to which core curriculum classes. So that's also a useful tool that you can look through at orientation when you're trying to register for courses.
Great. Thank you so much. So let's let's shift gears a little bit. Let's shift into more of the social life at BC. So, and I know we're running out of time here, but we are going to do our best to get to every single one of these questions. So, how did you all make friends? How did you find friends at campus? How did you get involved? What was the first week like on campus? How did that go? Emily, kick us off.
Okay, so on campus, we have over 300 clubs. Now, one thing that's super exciting is that in your first semester, I think it's in the first couple weeks, there is a club fair. So, you know, in the scene in Pitch Perfect, where there are all these people and they're screaming at you, they're like, we want you, we want you. It's that, and it's like the best thing ever. I signed up for like way too many clubs, and that's okay. But again, I think it speaks to BC's culture of like everybody wants to get to know you. And so that's a really great way to get involved. I think the club culture is the biggest way to get involved and the biggest way that people meet their friends. And a lot of clubs also have like mentorship programs where, for example, I'm in student admissions program, which is why I'm doing this panel with all of you. And we have SAP family. So we have 2 senior parents who then have all of us children who are like the underclassmen. So there's that mentorship, and a lot of clubs that I'm in have that sort of mentorship, and that's really important.
Great. And anybody else in terms of things that they're involved with besides the student admission program, maybe 1 or 2 things that have been really meaningful to you this year?
I'll just stop. Go. Okay. The struggles of Zoom. So I would say that BC is a very service-oriented school. There are a bunch of service clubs, and one of the biggest is called For Boston, where you're paired with with the service site, and you go once a week to do service there. But you also meet with the other people that are doing service at your site with you, which for me is a bunch of sophomores that I've gotten to know really well. Like Emily was talking about, it's very much of a mentorship, get to know each other, how's your week going kind of thing, which for me has been really impactful just because you get to do the service and give back to a new community that you've just joined, and also get to meet people at BC.
Great. Thank you, guys. All right. There's some additional questions. Let's see here. When do students who plan to study abroad for junior year think about this, and what is the process like to apply? None of these students here have gone through the process yet because they are first year students, but it starts at the beginning of your sophomore year. Any of you thinking about it? Yes. Okay. So all of them. Wonderful. So they will all learn more as they arrive on campus next year. They'll begin to meet with our Office of Global Education to talk about what programs are the best fit for them academically, including our nursing students like Ava. Anyone at BC can go abroad. So they'll have a real education on that process beginning in their next year. Let's see what else we have here. So this is a great question. Is it difficult to be a non-religious student at BC, and is religion really present on campus? So, if any of you mind sharing whether or not you're religious and what that experience has been like. Nick, I see you want to jump in first. Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like as a member of SAP, I always get asked, what's your take on the Jesuit tradition and yada, yada, yada. I am like not a religious student at all here. So I would definitely say it's what you make of it. I think a lot of some of the retreats are more like religiously charged. I haven't gone on any of them. So you can apply for those or sign up for those if you choose. There's also, I know Ava mentioned she's in a prayer room, so there are kind of dedicated spots on campus. Under my residence hall, there is like a little bit of a chapel area, and masses are held pretty frequently. So I think the answer to the question is simply, it is what you make of it. I am not religious. I don't feel left out in any sort of aspect with other students. And yeah, I think the only thing that's super present is the core. There are 2 theology classes you have to take, but they're certainly not indoctrinating you in any sort of fashion. So, yeah.
I would also add, so personally, I'm Catholic, and our Jesuit like identity is not something that like we hide, as like we mentioned on this panel. But I think what's really important to highlight about the Jesuit identity is the fact that it's all focused on dialogue and learning, and exploring kind of what you believe. So while there are a lot of opportunities to practice your faith if you are Christian and Catholic, there are also a lot of ways to practice your faith if you are a different religion. For example, a really good friend of mine is in the Hillel Society, which is for our Jewish students. There's a multi-faith chapel on campus, so students of all faith can use those spaces. Well, students of all faith can use any space, but specifically designated for students of other religions. There are spaces for every religion on campus, and there's like a whole list online that you can find. But I will say that I have spoken to several people who are of different religions, and they've always said that they felt really included in this environment because of the fact that it's an environment where we want to learn from one another and not to isolate one another. And I think that's really important.
Thank you, Emily. That's great. And Nick too. Thank you. All right. We are going to wrap up in the next few minutes. We have 3 questions remaining, and then I have a rapid fire question for all of you to answer. So Ava, quickly, what has the first year of nursing been like, and what's the program like so far?
Okay, the program I have loved so far. There, I would say about 100 of us in the program, and it's definitely probably one of my favorite things about BC here because I've made some of my closest friends. So I'll just quickly list off like a few of what I'm taking. So I'm in anatomy and physiology. Last semester I took chem and first year nursing seminar, which that was honestly one of my favorite classes was first year nursing seminar. It's I think sort of similar to Portico where you're in a smaller group. So it was about 7 of us with a junior and a senior nursing student. And, you know, they kind of just guided us through the way. Really everyone in the program wants to see you succeed. They, especially like your academic advisors, you know, with nursing, you do get a little less say of the classes you get to take. They sort of are planned out for you and you get to pick your 2 core classes. But every class I have taken have really helped me. And, you know, the professors have been very welcoming, very understanding. Everyone really wants to see you succeed in the program. We're definitely a close-knit group. I really know everyone, I would say, almost everyone's name in my class because we do have like our big lectures like anatomy, and then we have our smaller discussions with about 15 of us, and we have smaller labs which is also about 15 of us, and the program really is like helping us. And I think especially nursing close to a city like Boston is definitely really going to like set you up for success. There's great program, great hospitals like Massachusetts General Hospital, Boston Medical Center. And next year in the spring semester, we do start clinicals where we work in the hospital, and I'm very excited for that. So I really love the program, and it is challenging at times, but really everyone wants to see you succeed. Your TAs, you can go to office hours. There's just a bunch of resources that really help you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ava. So some questions about 3 versus 4 years of housing. For those who have 3 years, you will live off campus your junior year. About 50% of our juniors live off campus. Some students may apply once they're here for a variety of reasons to appeal that, but the vast majority of students who are given 3 will live off campus in their junior year. It is a very typical thing for BC students and something that's really part of the culture here as well. Do any of you work on campus? No one here. Oh, Emily, you do. So a question about federal work study. So if you were granted federal work study as part of your financial aid package, you can apply for an on-campus job. The list will be comprehensive once you decide to apply to BC. Emily, where do you work?
I work in a Stewart dining hall Friday mornings.
Awesome.
At cashier. It's really fun.
Awesome. So there's so many on-campus jobs and lots of opportunities to make sure that our work study students have the opportunity to earn money while they're here. Okay, can international students work on campus? I'm going to type an answer to you right now. There are opportunities to work for students. I think it depends on the personal circumstance. I'm going to shoot you a response now with my email so we can follow up about that as well. So we have answered a lot of questions. Before we wrap up, really quickly, 1 sentence. What has been your favorite memory this year? Allie, you go first.
Oh, my favorite memory this year literally just happened with Showdown. My best friends were on a team. They didn't win, but they were on a team and it was super fun to watch. Showdown's just like a huge dance thing with all the teams competing in our hockey and basketball arena, and it's super fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Ava, go ahead.
I would say Boston College versus Boston University hockey game back in December. We won too.
That's great. Good. Very fun. Nick.
This is more of like a general time, but going to office hours with my Portico professor, Professor Lacombe, because she's my favorite human being on this campus and the best mentor of all time, and has made my entire freshman year.
Go ahead, Emily.
Okay, I have two. I'm so sorry. I couldn't do just one sentence. First one is I'm in liturgy arts group, and so we actually got to sing at Carnegie Hall this past February. That was an incredible experience. And another one I would say on BC's campus was the very first snowfall, and everybody went out onto the hill and they brought like cardboard boxes, and everyone was like sledding down the hill. It was a blast. It was a good time.
So much fun. So I think all of you can hopefully understand that these 4 students, whom completely transparent, I really just met before this session, really love their experience here at Boston College so far. And it's my hope that for all of you on the screen this evening, this was helpful in understanding a little bit more about the first year experience and getting some of your questions answered as well. As I mentioned, this is just the beginning of the Experience Boston College series. We have 5 additional webinars coming up in the weeks to come, in addition to many on-campus programs as well. So please visit your applicant status portal to register for our Admitted Eagle Days, our weekday admitted student programs as well. We would love to host you on campus. Before we wrap up, if you just hover over your screen, all of these students have put their emails next to their name. So feel free to take a photo of the screen if you want to reach out to any of our students here, or if we can connect you with any other students who are studying something that's more in line with your interests as well. But best of luck as you navigate the college decision-making process. I know it's a lot to consider, and certainly if we can be of any resource, please don't hesitate to be in touch. Congratulations, and we look forward to chatting with you again soon. Have a great night.
Have a good night, everyone.